Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this first quarter review meeting to order. First quarter review meeting of the Police Advisory and Review Committee. My name is Jonathan Haskell. I serve as the co-chair, and just like to welcome everyone here tonight. Thank you for being here. Special welcome to a new member, Ms. Laura Contreras. Thank you for your willingness to serve the city in this regard. Welcome you here. I'd like to start with a reading of our mission, vision, and rules of decorum, and I would ask Ms. Sadie Williams to help with that.
Namaste, everyone. Namaste. The mission of the Police Advisory and Review Committee, Parc, is to provide community members of the City of Knoxville a civilian oversight committee that audits the discipline process, policies, and procedures of the Knoxville Police Department. The purpose of Parc is to strengthen the relationship between community members of the City of Knoxville and the Knoxville Police Department by providing a timely, fair, and objective review of community complaints. Parc also assists community members in navigating the investigative process after filing a complaint with KPD. Rules of decorum. Those who wish to speak during the public forum should sign up by contacting the Parc office ahead of time or by signing up in person prior to the start of the meeting at 6 p.m. All speakers will begin in 5 minutes. Please do not use profanity and remember to stay on topic. Those who fail to adhere to those rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note that you may not disrupt the public meeting from the audience. Those who do may be asked to leave. We appreciate everyone's respect of these rules.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of our 2024 quarter 4 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second. Any questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Next up is our Executive Director's report from Jared Kern. Sir.
Good evening, everyone. During the first quarter, I remained deeply engaged in community outreach and transparency efforts. Community office hours were held at both Western Heights and CAC building, at the CAC building, creating opportunities for residents to share concerns and ask questions and learn more about the role of Parc in promoting police accountability. A key highlight of the quarter was participation in the Knoxville Police Department's Crisis Intervention Training, or CIT. This provided valuable insight into how officers are trained to respond to individuals in crisis, including those experiencing mental health challenges. This experience enriched my understanding of KPD's procedures and informed future community conversations around policing and de-escalation. Additionally, we conducted the Central District Public Listening Session, fostering open dialogue between law enforcement and community members about topics, about law enforcement and community members, and ensuring that citizen voices were heard and documented. To further extend outreach, I also attended the KCDC Resource Fair at Isabella Towers, engaging with residents and connecting them to available resources while reinforcing Parc's mission of accountability, accessibility, and advocacy. I submit the complete report for the board's approval. Thank you.
Next up, we will share our subcommittee reports. For the audio-visual report, I would ask Ms. Flores.
Yes, this is the audio-video report for the first quarter, representing January through March 2025. Of the 0 referral action forms and 8 OPS cases reviewed by the Parc, there were 3 cases with documented audio and video recordings based on body-worn cameras and or the incident taking place in the vicinity of the officer's patrol vehicles and within a reportable range. The audio-video subcommittee submits the following findings for our second quarter review. Call number 1, OPS case 2958, there was no AV for the case. File 2, case 2942, awaiting AV for this case. File 3, 2492, case 2492, also awaiting AV. File number 4, case also 2942, awaiting AV. File 5, case 2954, there was no AV for that case. File 6, case 2958, no AV. File 7, case 2958 as well. And file 8, 2958, there was no AV for that case. In summary, the Knoxville Police Department General Order 2.16, digital audio video recording equipment, details that officers and vehicles equipped with audio video recording equipment shall be in record mode at all times when there is a potential for contact with a person in the community, whether on duty or during secondary employment. The purpose of digital audio video recording equipment is to monitor all contacts with a person in the community in all situations possible. In addition, Knoxville Police Department requires sergeants to review officers' audio and visual footage twice per month at random to ensure that their equipment is operating properly. And that's the end of the audio video.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? For the racial profiling report, there were 0 alleged racial profiling or bias-based police cases reviewed by Parc during this quarter. So we will move on to operations and case review with Mr. Kent.
So starting off with cases reviewed for KPD, closed OPS and/or referral action for cases. 8, Parc, community anonymous complaints received via Parc office. 7, community anonymous complaints referred to OPS or captain. 1, total cases received that include internal affairs and complaints to Parc. 18, total cases pending per quarter. 0 complaints that are awaiting review by Parc upon completion of the KPD or Parc investigations. 8, total cases closed per quarter. Overall number of cases reviewed and closed by Parc staff. 3, next is resolution of community complaint cases. Parc staff 0, KPD. KPD contacted the complainant, and the complainant decided to not move forward with a formal investigation, or KPD conducted the investigation and shared their findings with the complainant directly. 1, mediation, Parc staff and KPD. This would be Parc staff met with the complainant and KPD to provide mediation services to resolve issues of concern. 0, referrals to appropriate agencies. Parc office received a call or calls regarding issues involving other law enforcement departments. That's 6. And then a year-to-year comparison report. So this is covering January 24, and then I think there's 24 of December, yeah, and year-to-date. Total cases brought to Parc from its inception to present, 2,094, year-to-date, 2,094. Total cases closed from its inception to present, 2882, and the same 2882. Cases resolved by Parc office, last year was 76, year-to-date 15. Resolved by mediation between Parc office and KPD, both saying 0. Resolved by KPD, last year was 18, year-to-date being 1. Referrals to appropriate agencies, last year 28, year-to-date 6. Total cases pending, last year 15, year-to-date 8. Parc cases referred to OPS or captain for the year, last year 19, year-to-date 1. And lastly, OPS case reviewed by Parc staff and committee OPS, last year 31, year-to-date 8.
Clarify, did you say from inception to present, total cases closed 28
82 or 2812?
Oh, sorry, yeah, 2812, Bill. Contactless. Contact is right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for those eyes.
Any other questions? Next on the agenda, case matters addressed by the committee, and I think Josie has an update for us on some of those questions.
I do. Of all the cases that we are reviewing, there was one question submitted by Park committee members for KPD, and that's regarding OPS case 24-2942. That includes 3 of the case files which we review. As a note, we give each officer in each OPS case on our Park side their own individual number, even though it's just one OPS case. So that's why there are 3 separate files for the same one. And the question was, quote, I believe that the officers follow procedures and policies and responded as they've been trained to do. It is sad to me that this is the only ending we can imagine for someone having an apparent mental health crisis. I know that every case is different, but is there no consideration in situations like this for the use of non-lethal force, end quote? And the response was, quote, the OPS investigation found that these officers' actions were within guidelines as stated. This was an incredibly unfortunate situation the officers found themselves in, and they responded to the lethal threat as trained, end quote.
Any other questions from the committee?
That is 24-2942.
All right, we will move on to committee business. Anything to add?
I don't know if anyone has any open questions about me.
Okay.
Does it have to be per se pertaining to Park? That's the question.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Well, I do have a question, but it's not specifically related to Park, so I guess I'm wanting to know, is now an appropriate time, or should that be like, at another time when we're not in session, for lack of a better way of expressing it?
It's hard for me to answer that. I don't know what you're going to say, of course. I mean, is it
Well-
have any pertinency to what we're talking about in the most general sense? Or?
Perhaps broadly
I'd
speaking.
say answer. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, and then if it's not, I'm
Yeah, I'm
sure,
sorry.
I'm
You
sure
serve
that,
your authority, but
I'm sure that the
Yeah.
officers, KPD will make me aware. So, I've been reading recently about the mounted patrol that we have, yes. And, I've gotten some response from the community in terms of being a little concerned. It takes some of our elders back, perhaps to a period of time in their life when mounted police were not thought of very fondly. And so, I guess my question that's indirectly been posed to me is, what are the policies and or procedures as it relates to the mounted police? I know I've read in the paper where they'll be used as it relates to crowd control, like I think they were there at the opening day at the ball field, and maybe some of the festivals that may take place down on the World's Fair site, things of that nature. But are there any specific policies and procedures in terms of how they're to be engaged with the public?
Absolutely. So I'm super excited about our mounted patrol for the opening day of baseball. It was the first time they were out there. They were actually doing their training certification patrol. They were posted up outside of the baseball stadium. They were actually handing out these stuffed little KPD horses that were that was kind of like represented one of the horses, and people were coming up to them, kids were petting them. It was really, really cool. The purpose of the mounted patrol is a lot more than that. It's really about having a visible presence, particularly downtown. We have Market Square, Old City, We have a really robust downtown now, and have those officers in the area sitting on those horses with a high vantage point. They can see a long ways, but more importantly, people can see them. The research shows that a physical police presence goes a long way in being able not only make people feel safe, but reducing crime within that area. So that's the main purpose of the mounted patrol. They will be used at the direction of one of our deputy chiefs if needed in a crowd control capacity. But that's something according to the mounted policy that we have can only be done if our deputy chief or higher directs that activity. So I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be a great addition to downtown. And the feedback that I've seen from the people by the baseball stadium for them downtown has been really very positive. We certainly something I will watch really closely, and we have a robust policy on the model unit, and one that we really took a lot for the national police department. I think it's going to be a great addition.
Is that policy available to the general public?
Well, we have all our policies online. I'm not sure if that one has been uploaded yet because it's pretty new, but I'll go check and see. But it is all our policies available online. And sometimes it takes still uploaded, but we'll absolutely do it.
Another question that was posed to me regarding the mounted police was in terms of the, trying to think of a better word to use, when it was used given to me. You spoke just a few minutes ago about them being seated on the horse gives them somewhat of an advantage because they're higher up. And so does the policy also include the firing of firearms?
We do have a section in there about the use of weapons, but for the most part, our general order of use of force is what we're not there. Their operations. So like our policies are not standalone. We have a policy of use of force. We have other policies, and all of our policies apply to mounted officers. So it's also
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ms. Williams, but what I'm hearing is Chief Noel has received very positive comments, positive feedback about the program, while other neighbors in our community have a different feeling, maybe negative feelings about that. I don't know if there's a solution to that, but I do think it's important that, Chief, that you know and that your officers know that it's not a universal goodwill.
sure.
I hope that at least that will be taken into consideration when deploying and when and where to deploy. Is that fair to say as well?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Can I follow up on that question? And I have a question for you, but I wondered if you did you get any explicit suggestions from community members about what they thought might make it better, or other than getting rid of them? Just back there.
There was, but I'm not going to repeat what was shared with me. I hope you all understand there's a certain amount of respect that I have for the community, and the community has for me, and the only way for me to maintain my level of respect, if you will, with the community is to maintain. Right, but I assured them that I would bring something up today because of the meeting, and I've done as I indicated that I would. So.
I'm just curious if there were individuals who could provide creative compliments that would give the police a chance to show that they're good.
Well, given the fact, because I do believe a couple of people may have went online to try to find policies and they may not have been successful. And so before I leave, I'd like to have, so that I can have to my disposal to give to individuals. The site, if you will, where they can go.
But before the end of the meeting, I will email to you, Jared, the money. So it's not a policy, it's a standard operating procedure. But I will email that to you, as soon as I pull it up.
And I'll share that with the entire committee.
Sure.
Okay.
If that's with your permission.
No, absolutely, please, absolutely. Literally as soon as I find that I got it on this thing somewhere, and I will, I'll get it to you.
Thank you, I understand what you're saying. So a somewhat related question that I have for the KPD is, I work at the university, there are a lot of international students, we have a lot of news about student visas being revoked and different things. And so I'm curious what KPD's policy, but also what's being done or said publicly in terms of how your police force works with or does not work with immigration and customs enforcement. Because I know there's a lot of fear and a lot of misinformation.
So, we work closely with all federal agencies. Let me say this, we're not an immigration enforcement agency, just like we don't enforce the tax code or other events like that. We enforce, we enforce violations of state law and municipal ordinance. So, while we have a strong working relationship with our federal partners, immigration enforcement is under the jurisdiction of immigration ICE. Not the Knoxville Police Department, just like we don't enforce tax, if someone's violating the tax code, there's a federal agency that does.
And so if any individual was stopped for a traffic violation or had some other kind of interaction with KPD, wouldn't be at risk of getting apprehended or getting their names sent to ICE?
There's a state law, Ron, you have to help me. There's a state law that mandates that if we're aware of someone that is in the country illegally, Ron, help me if I'm wrong, we're obligated under state law to report that to the appropriate authorities. Ron, help me out here.
That's correct. That doesn't necessarily apply to someone who's encountered generally. If there's a violation of the law, then I would also point out, just kind of caution everybody, General Assembly just shut down for the year on Tuesday. Nobody's had a chance to look to see exactly what they passed regarding everything. I know they had several immigration related bills that were still pending. I just don't know exactly what they've done as well. Those are unfortunately covered sometimes to the good, sometimes to the worse by whatever they decide to tell law enforcement to do.
I'm sorry?
You done?
Thank you.
I had a question, somewhat piggybacking on hers. Is part of a car stop a question or any sort of inquiry into citizenship status?
No.
By definition, it's not.
No.
So that, whatever you mentioned, if it comes up, that would have to be initiated by the person being stopped or?
Not something in the general practice that the Knoxville Police Department is interested in. Now, if someone is taken to the jail, then it's out of our control. We know that the jail does participate in 287.
But generally speaking, officers do not have I won't use the word mandate, that's too strong of a word. They don't have a training push, if you will, to say, okay, are you documented or have that part of the conversation in a car stop for speeding, for tail light. That's not part of a normal.
We're interested in violations of state law and municipal ordinance, which immigration is not at this point a violation.
So if an officer did do that, are they outside the scope of what their training is as far as inquiring about that specifically?
We don't train on obtaining, citizenship and naturalization status.
So would they face any sort of penalty for doing that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It's never come up. I've never seen it. I don't know. I don't know.
It seems like a whole is kind of the policy. If an officer takes it upon himself to say, well, you look like you could be from somewhere else. Where are you from? And they say, oh yeah, I was born in Honduras, and then that opens that door. And I'm simply not saying they would do that, but I know that every sworn officer is not in full alignment with, whatever it is that the law or the policy or the intent of the leadership. None of us here are naive enough to think that every officer is in alignment. But I just want to know, is that part of their training? And if it's not, will they face some sort of accountability if they violate that policy? Not policy, pardon me, that procedural training.
We don't train on it at all, is what I'm saying. Like, we don't train.
I think that's a deficit, to be quite honest. And I could be wrong. Enlighten me.
I would just say with some caution that the General Assembly would look down on training that you do not do, that. I think there's a very narrow window that we can operate, but if the training would be that you, not only that you want to ask, but you are not allowed to do so. You're not allowed to provide information.
That's fair. Allowed to is a strong word.
And this, to be fair as well, this is not, so far, this has not been a problem at all. I work really closely with Central Hispano, a lot of the other groups. It's not, they all have a direct line to me. I've not heard that. But I think Ron was saying it might make sense not to poke the bear.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, but I just want to be preemptive as we can, at least with an understanding of what it may look like. Because we're in the very beginning stages of what may, the landscape changing in regards to how that type of thing is looked at. I'm just curious.
I will tell you that an official policy of not cooperating with federal immigration officials is not something that any municipality wants to do. Because I believe it's probably a violation of state law at this point. To have an official policy that says you do not cooperate.
I understand. That's why I would never ask anyone to make an official policy. But I think that if the culture is encouraged that this is what happens and this is what the outcome is supposed to be, how they get to that outcome they can be creative in that space. And that's all I was kind of getting.
Let me point out that in the federal civil rights law, custom and practice become official policy really quickly. So there's just not much room to operate there.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
I sorry, I have one more question that popped up. You want to go first, please?
Either. So I'd like to follow up to that. Even though there's no policy to ask, are you here legally or not? We all know that undocumented immigrants are not allowed to have a driver's license. So if you pull them over for anything and they don't produce a driver's license, then what's the procedure? Then are they now undocumented?
Well, I mean, if someone's driving without the authorization to do so, they risk, going to jail for that offense, absolutely.
So without a policy, it is, you are going to be reporting them to ICE because you take them in since they don't have a driver's license, and now then it becomes the issue that they're not here documented. And to, follow that opens the door to profile, right? For anything that can be breaking the law. Just, I have a broken tail light, which it is against the law regardless of who you are. But again, that just kind of, maybe they wouldn't stop everybody for that. I don't know. That was one of the follow-ups to that. My other question to you is, if somebody's trying to get into my house without my permission, I can call the police and you can intervene, correct?
Yes.
If it's ICE, can you intervene?
I would not envision a scenario where we would try to intervene in a lawful federal law enforcement agency trying to execute their constitutional duties.
So that the Constitution or the premise is that they can come into my house if they have a specific order for them to be looking for me, right? If the order says we're looking for Laura Contreras here. If they're looking for Laura Contreras, but Laura Contreras doesn't live there and they're trying to force themselves into my home, and I call you, can you intervene? Is the question.
I think it is very difficult. It's a very difficult position to put a police officer in to make a determination at the moment whether a federal immigration official is closed in the authority of a federal immigration official who is presumed to be on an official investigation say, we have to step in and stop you from doing your job. I don't think that's a position you can put a law enforcement officer in.
I understand that, however, again, I'm just trying to, figure out where the protections and for a citizen who is being targeted without a proper order, right? Am I confusing or?
No, I understand you, and trust
So-
me,
So if they came looking for John Smith to my house, nobody here by the name of John Smith, and they tried to forcefully get into my house, I cannot call the police to intervene? Is that kind of where we are?
nobody's gonna say you can't call the police, it's just a question of what authority the officer may have to do,
Okay.
in a situation like that.
So then, what is the authority that you have?
Well, again, this gets back to the action of the General Assembly. The General Assembly, if I'm not mistaken, has expressly said that it is a criminal offense to interfere with the actions of federal immigration authorities or any local official who's police officers.
So that when I go back to my community and they're asking these questions, then technically it's irrelevant to call the police.
Now, I would never say that, but if you're dealing with properly authenticated law enforcement or federal immigration officials, there's just not much that the officers can do. Now, at the same time, the officers can certainly ask for identification and ask for determination as to whether the person who's presenting themselves as an ICE official or as a federal law enforcement official is actually that person.
Okay.
So you could deal with that. I would also point out with regard to remedies, there are always civil remedies, without getting into any kind of comment as to the effectiveness of the civil remedies that are attached right now. Those civil remedies are there. There's also the appeal process. Again, not getting into politics of that, but those
Okay.
are available.
So at least they could call you to validate the identity of the person presenting themselves as a ICE
I
agent
think
or.
certainly
That would be helpful.
And not only interjection, and it's somewhat curiosity, it creates a record. This is what I'm thinking. It creates a record that's local, a record that, because from what my experience, and this is passive experience, I don't have any direct experience with the ICE agents coming sort of clandestinely, moving people. But I would think if you have local law enforcement there is a record of who was there, the time, the place, the location, and particular, perhaps where they were taking this person. And I think that might be helpful in regards to you phoning a local law enforcement agency. They may not be able to intervene per se, but they can be a record of what happened there. And if there are potential violations that you may have recourse in the future to pursue civilly or by any other means, that would provide a record that this happened at this time. Is that fair to say? Okay. That would be my suggestion.
So the second question I had was in regards to AI. And I'm just curious if the police department is using any artificial intelligence tools, gathering data, looking at databases to deal with law enforcement. Because it's kind of under the same umbrella of all these other things we're talking about. Is that something that the community can know about?
We're not using any specific AI tools right now. There are a lot of AI tools out there that I think are really intriguing, especially with body-worn camera video for quality control to take a look at whether officers' conduct is, officers doing a good job or if they're doing a poor job. But we're not using any AI capability like that. We do use, and we have an auditor that we hired, an Office of Professional Standards, and I think that the software that they use randomly generates some use of force files that they review, but we're not using any police report AI writing or anything like that.
How about anything regarding facial recognition?
We do have facial recognition at KPD, yes, that we have a policy on, which is on our website. I think we have a really good facial recognition policy.
Yeah, I'm just curious about just because I do, healthcare, and so we think about privacy, we think about using AI with clients. We're supposed to let our clients know if we're using AI technology because it gets into issues of privacy and healthcare information. Are you all beholden to any of that? Is there anything regarding laws that say that the city or the citizens need to know that AI is being used by KPD, or is that?
The city has an AI policy. All of our policies are aligned. We're not using, like, there's AI policy that, that helps draft police reports and other things like that. We're not using that. Now we're not using any, like data mining AI technology that would go through, like, there's stuff that, like, an example in homicide cold cases, for example. This is something I'm really intrigued with. One of the things that we've not, law enforcement as a whole, not Knoxville, but as a whole, we could do better on is really taking a look at cold cases for solvability factors that maybe didn't exist for 30 years ago, like DNA or things like that. And they have software out there that will go through. You can upload all of your case files, like thousands of files, and it will go through and generate solvability factors. We're not using anything like that. But I think AI in that capacity, I think is very, very intriguing, right? Because that stuff that's just sitting there. The same thing with body on camera video. We have literally there's an infinite amount of body on camera video we capture, but only a small percentage of that ever gets viewed. And there's AI technology that exists right now. We don't have it, but we'll go through and analyze all that technology, and it'll say it appears in this case the officers did a really good job, or it appears in this case you might want to look at this video because the officers might not have done a good job, whether they use foul language or whether, I don't know exactly what algorithm they use, but it flags a human to go look at it. I think that type of technology, I think, is very, very intriguing. I think when it gets perfected, I think it has the ability to really be really beneficial to the profession as a whole, but we're not using anything like that yet.
It would be. It's excellent for training, it's excellent for a lot of the pro-social things, but there's also, I think, we just have to, as part of our advisory role, just thinking about the ethics behind using that information for targeting, profiling, these kinds of things, it's just something I want.
And I just think it's like everything else, right? Like all technology, you look at the technology innovations that we have experienced in our lifetime. There's a lot of really good, and a lot of really bad. Like take this laptop, for instance, incredibly powerful tool, and this phone, incredibly powerful tool that we use to make our life more efficient. But you can also, sex traffic kids with the same technology as well, right? So I think it's something that, as this technology gets developed, I think, it's something that law enforcement is looking at real closely. How can we make our job more efficient? How can we do a better job of quality control? Again, none of that's happening here in Knoxville yet, but it is something that I am personally looking at just because as a leader in this profession, something I'm intrigued. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're aware of it, you're thinking about it. I think I know there's a lot of bias in a lot of the AI work that's used. And so I just want folks to be thinking about it.
I had a couple of questions in the LPR, the license plate reader is what LPR is. Mm-hmm. Is that considered AI?
I don't think so.
No, okay. And how long does that data get kept if there is no, say, workable case based on information that pulls from it?
It's either 30, 60, and 90. I could. Yeah. So the state allows what is it we do. I have to get the exact number, but we have a restriction that's kind of in the state law.
And is it still photo or video?
So it is, it takes a photograph of the license plate, then it converts that license plate as it sees it into digits or letters.
And I hate to keep bombarding you, but the
placement.
It is. I need to get more so I can ask more questions. But the placement of these cameras, is that, what is the formula or metric for placing license plate readers around town. I see them in certain areas, and maybe perhaps I just don't see them, but I don't see them in other areas. And it seems as if there is a higher proclivity for having them in the community. I live in East Knoxville, for example. I've seen 5.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is that the same in every community in the city, or is that due to some of the other policies? I know the TLC policies, and is that part of something else, or is that just normal?
We look at a lot of things. I think the first thing that we have to have is we have to have a pole with power and the ability to connect to internet. So you can't just put a camera right here, because we got to have, the first thing is you got to have the ability to make that function. And then we look at a lot of things, whether it's call for service volume, complaints, crime data. We can't put them on, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, we cannot put them on like a state routes. Like state routes, we're not on, we're prohibited on those.
I'm sorry, say that.
Interstates.
Okay.
We can't put them in those locations. So there's some by law, there's some things that we prohibit. But, we have a finite amount of them, so we try to put them in areas where they can be close.
And 2 things, is there a time frame on how long they stay there? And
They don't really move.
once they're sort of.
Yeah, because they're expensive. They're expensive to place.
And are the communities where these cameras are placed, are they made aware of them?
Not to my knowledge.
Is that like purposeful, or is that a tactical decision, or is a sort of a miss? No, I don't know the answer to that.
They were placed before I got here, so I'm going to, just to be fair, I don't know what went into the exact that thought process. I will say that when the Real-Time Information Center, when we place those cameras will be locations. If those cameras will be over in nature, we'll have no problem making locations publicly available. I don't know what went into the decision-making process.
So what I think of are red light cameras, and you see red light camera ahead, and I would like to have the ability to know that my license plate is being recorded if I enter into this area, so I have the opportunity to either go there or not go there. It just seems, now maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but that's just my own thinking. You want to say something else?
Well, we've got to point out to you, bear in mind that these cameras are not online data, they're not connected to an online database.
I'm sorry.
They're not connected to an online database. It's not, they're not searching the state database. They basically search for the data that's already placed into the system, such as stolen vehicles, things of that nature, so that, let me say for Amber Alert situations, that data would be placed into the system. So it's things that they're already looking for, as opposed to just running a car through and knowing where anybody is at any given moment. To give you an example, let's say you were dealing with a runaway child. If you don't, if the child has taken a family car, that child wouldn't necessarily be in the database already. So you can't just plug in a few keystrokes and say, okay, it's in the database, this is what we've seen already. You're going to have to put that license plate into the system so that it would then start searching for kids.
So this doesn't simply just pour through the entire Tennessee state license plate record, for lack of a better phrase. It doesn't do that without secondary steps.
That's my understanding, yes. You cannot get a printout of every person who passed through or passed the camera in the last 10 minutes because not all vehicles are going to be database.
And I know they have the stationary ones. Do any of the patrol cars have this access or this technology?
90 days is the answer.
Say again, I'm sorry?
90 days.
Oh, yeah.
I would also point out to you, and this is not generally known, but I would point out to you that there are probably multiple factors of more privately owned license plate reader cameras out there than publicly owned.
Who would own a private one?
Parking lots.
The legal guy.
Yes,
It's such a bad.
I wasn't aware that was
well,
a thing.
if you recall, there was a bit of a brouhaha. It was a business decision about the Curtis Food Hall. about their parking policies several months ago. It was a license plate camera that was actually recording people there, and therefore they didn't that. I mean, that's a private piece of a license plate camera. I cannot say for certain, but I will venture larger retailers have license plate cameras.
I wasn't aware of that usage.
It's Lowe's and South Knox.
That's all I have, thank you.
I have another question, comment or suggestion. I recently got a speeding ticket, and I had to have it. Anyway, the point was that when I was pulled over and he was handing me my ticket, he stated to me very clearly, "Oh, don't worry about it, just pay it, it's not gonna go on record, and it doesn't affect your license." Which is not true. And if the officers are telling people this has a very high impact on their financial stability, because the rates are gonna go up, potentially even drop them, and then I have more uninsured motorists out there.
There are actually some situations where the country is always correct, and I'm glad to talk to you about that.
For a speeding ticket? So when I call my insurance agent, they said,
No, let's not go into detail. Let me talk to you after.
okay.
All right.
Well, I don't know if it's a policy procedure thing or individual, so I'll tell you what happened. So, I was at Crunch Park, it was in the middle of the afternoon, and, you know, it's benches right at Crunch Park, and, a guy was, honestly, I mean, by his clothes, you would assume he's unhoused, but I don't know. But in any event, I saw two cadets trying to just keep waking them up and just like kind of like stood like where like me and her at, just like kind of like stood there as he's kind of like going in and out of sleep. So I was going to ask, you know, now I don't know the situation, so I don't know their procedures around people sleeping on benches. I don't know if it's an unhoused kind of thing. I'm not really sure because I saw that it was a couple of months ago, but I was just, you know, I mean, cadets are young, you know, they were told to, but I was curious about, you know, is it sleeping on benches? Is it unhoused thing? I'm not really sure.
You know, I don't want to speak to the exact circumstance because, you know, I don't know the facts, but I can tell you that, you know, I get out and I go walk downtown a lot, and I'll get stopped a lot, and someone will say, you know, there's a person over there, I don't know if they're okay, right? You know, we deal with overdoses every day, right? If you go talk to some of the firemen that work, especially around there, like you think firemen putting out fires, we know what they're doing, they're administering Narcan and stuff like that. So, like, you know, we would be negligent if someone flagged us down and said, look, there's a gentleman over there, and I don't think he's well, he might need medical attention. You know, so like the expectation would be that officers could, that's what walk over there, go check on the well-being of the person. And just say if someone could be sleeping, they also, you know, could be unconscious. And if someone is kind of in and out of consciousness, that could be something where they're attempting to evaluate that person to see whether they need Narcan or whether they need medical attention or all of the above. You're right, you know, so it's really hard to, you know, it's hard to know what occurred. You know, we also get calls for service for, you know, different things. You know, I was aware of one, you know, not that far in the distant past where the person was acting unruly, and by the time we responded, the person was like sitting on a bench, right? That's where they locate the person, so they have to, you know, go talk to the person and see what's going on. But yeah, I'm not aware of the exact purpose, the exact circumstances of that. The good thing is that they all wear body cameras, right? So if there is something where, you know, someone potentially sees something that could be a problem, you know, we want to know about it, so we go back and we can review their body on camera video and see what
Yeah, I was trying to figure it out myself, but like, I don't know if it was, I mean, could he be sleepy or, you know, something wrong. I was there for a while, you know, I was there for a while on the bench just talking. I was talking to a friend, so I was, you know, I didn't want to assume like anything. I was kind of sat there to go out, but, you know, cadets, you know, they still learn. I don't know what the situation was prior to me sitting down, right? So I have no idea with the guy, I don't know what the other, basically had on, right? I know what he was. We were just curious everything around, you know, sleeping on benches. But, yeah, I think, you know, a couple months ago, so, what do I do, man? You know, just kind of sitting there, I think about 30-something minutes, but that was a long time. Yeah. Appreciate it.
If you see something like that, let us know. And also, after the encounter's over with, you go talk to the cadets. They're just kids, they're out there, they're working. They're, I think I'll go out there and watch them a lot, and they're, it's like a paid internship, right? So they're out there and they're trying to see if this profession is right for them, and if this isn't, we also looking at them and judging their behavior as well to see if they have what it takes when they get old enough to become a police officer to enter the academy. So it's a great opportunity. I would encourage you to go up and engage them and talk to them. I was talking to a couple cadets today, and it's pretty interesting just to go talk. I would not say to go talk to them while they're while they're interacting with an individual, but like you just see them walking downtown. I'd stop and go talk to them, and I do it all the time, whether it's in a building or whether it's downtown out in the street. I would encourage you to go engage them and just say hi and say you're on this, good icebreaker, you're on the park board, right? And maybe it's a good chance to get a dialogue.
Yeah, I'm all about engagement and the kind of cross-sector kind of dialogue.
But also, if you think they're doing something they're not supposed to do, like we want to know about it, because I want to go back and look at that body work and see what happened.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is our speaker, who was not able to make it tonight. So we will move on to public forum, which no one signed up for.
I'm just going to ask you, did you have a desire to share something?
Well, I have a question kind of going back to
Let me give you a little bit of preface.
Yes.
The way, and I'm going to let you speak, so let me say that up front. But the way it works typically is you can sign up to speak on our website.
Yes.
Prior to the meetings or before the meeting starts.
Yes.
We have a list of people who can sign up and speak. But we'll allow you, chance to speak. Yeah, well, just when you share what you're going to share, just give us your name and your zip code. And our intern, our wonderful intern, will give you 5 minutes.
Yes.
And that'll be your time to share. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I'll give them an opportunity to get set up, and we'll do that. But just so you know, look, I know we're being recorded, but don't tell anybody. But we want to make sure that we want to honor your time to come out tonight. But this is not typically the procedure, but just so you know for the future, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Mills. I am a student over at LMU downtown. So I live in Sevierville, but I'm 37865. I didn't come in with anything to say. This kind of developed from the conversation about the immigration status and things like that. Should have signed up, didn't know I had this question until midway through. I guess I'm kind of wondering, is there any, I'm concerned about essentially a chilling effect of some communities to talk to police. And as you mentioned, and as was mentioned, it's not feasible to discourage officers from asking about citizenship status. But I guess, first of all, I don't know that citizens necessarily know if they're not officially stopped, that they can say, oh, I don't want to answer that question. I want to go somewhere else. So I guess I'm wondering, is there anything in place to stop, whether it be malicious or whether it be we all deal with people that were well, I'd rather not see this guy again. So I'm just going to ask this question, and now that I have this information, I'm obligated to report it. I guess that's my concern. That's where my concern lies, is if certain communities feel as though any interaction with the police could lead to deportation, is there anything in place to kind of regulate or kind of maintain that community balance?
You mind if I answer?
Please.
Response? I'd love to actually answer this question to the best of my ability. So, when I first came here, it's been three years. can't believe that now, almost 3 years of summer. You know, one of the things that I was excited to do was sit down with the Hispanic community. We did a lot of listening sessions. And I didn't ask if a lot of people in the room were documented, undocumented, none of my business, but I could make some personal assumptions, but, you know, it wasn't anything I asked, but sat down with a lot of people and I just listened. And we did that once a quarter. And it was really powerful for me personally, and I really got to know this group really well. And then, you know, we continued to have these listening sessions. We brought a bunch of officers, and we rotated officers in. American Cannon came to one and spoke in Spanish, which was really cool. I wish I could do that. I could only do a couple things in Spanish, not a whole lot. But, you know, we really, you know, developed a strong relationship, you know, with that community. We worked really closely with Centro Hispano. To, you know, really, you know, build a relationship and dialogue with them. I don't have a perfect answer to your question. This is obviously, as we all know, the world is in, it's interesting times right now, right? But I think the thing that we can do in law enforcement is really to develop relationships with different communities. And I think we've done a pretty good job of really building and enhancing that relationship over Christmas. You know, the Hispanic community is a very strong Catholic community. I happen to be Catholic and spent a lot of time at, you know, some Catholic Christmas masses and some other rituals that are really powerful in the Hispanic community. I got to really know the community really well. There's no perfect answer to your question, but the thing that we're doing is really trying to maintain those relationships and build a strong outreach and have that trust in the community. I think we're doing a decent job of doing that. It's certainly something that I'm committed to doing long term, but also now, like the state of the world right now makes it very, very challenging to be able to do that.
I would like to add, if I may.
Sure.
That the role of Parc, Police Advisory Review Committee, is to act as a liaison between the community and the police department. So some of the more tricky or more sensitive questions can be filtered through us to the department. We can have conversations with them that may not be as easily had with citizens who have some sort of compromised situation, whatever it may be. So we are open to having that and to sort of being a bridge of communication or a bridge of understanding between the community, any community in Knoxville, and the police department. And we've been very blessed to have a very amicable relationship in trying to solve some problems. Very often, you know, there are adversarial relationships throughout the state and beyond between police oversight and police departments. We've been very blessed to work with these folks over here to solve problems. So when problems come up in the community, we don't always just take our sides. We try to come together and say, how can we solve this problem? So if you do have an issue or you're aware of an issue or someone comes to you with an issue, you can come to us and we can, like I said, we don't work for the police department, we all work for the city, right? So citizens and ensuring that they are safe, that they are, fulfilling themselves to the fullest person they can be is what we all want. But they have responsibilities, we have responsibilities. But what we're here to do, as I said before, is to be a liaison between the citizen and the police department. So you can get with me afterwards, I can give you a card, and we can make sure that we facilitate some conversations and potentially in the future that may assist some of the folks that you're speaking about.
Can I say one more thing? So can I give you some homework? So, there's two groups that I've really personally worked closely with that are really trying to work in the sphere. One is the Centro Hispano. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not. The other one that has hosted all these listening sessions that we've done is the Alliance for Community Transformation, Emma Pasiga's group. And I think it's just something that you would be interested in. I think it would be really beneficial to reach out to Emma and talk about what they're doing in this sphere. And they have really, ACT has really done a lot to really advance how we interact in this. And those relationships really have grown. I really feel like we're in a pretty good position of trust here. We've had a lot of dialogues that I don't want to get into all the details here because Ron will get mad at me, but I think I would, if it's something you're really interested in, I would suggest you reach out to the ACT and Central Hispanic and talk about some of the options. Something to think about.
Can I just quick follow-up to that? And are you working with other immigrant communities, like Greek refugees or non-Spanish communities? I mean, we have a majority of Spanish-speaking community here, but what about the other communities? The Russian community, the African community, right? Are you also having conversations with them?
So we, not the Russian community, but we were working really closely with the Islamic community as well. We actually brought a bunch of officers with the mosque down which is really cool. Something that I did in New Orleans a fair amount of something the first time I was here. But I've not interacted with anybody from the Russian community or other communities. It's been the Hispanic community, Black community, Islamic community, a little bit of the Polish community, only because I go to Sacred Park and the precinct is Polish, and it's a Polish tradition, which is pretty cool to see once in a while. But that's the extent of my interaction. But there's a community out there that wants to interact with us. We see always able to so.
Thank you, Chief, for your response there. Community updates. I know, Jared, you've got some things to bring to our attention.
One of the things we have that's in the same vein of what we do is the Youth Violence Prevention Week kickoff. And that's a great program designed to really engage young people in breaking cycles of violence in the community. And that's going to start Sunday at 1:30 at the Emerald Youth Foundation Lonsdale facility. And that's one. And also, the State of the City address, which will be happening tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. That'll be held at the new stadium. And it's going to be open to the public. So that's really going to give a lot of people a chance to come in and see the work that's been done and and not have to watch a boring baseball game. Just to be honest, that's just my projection of my own stuff.
I'm taking personally.
No, but the State of the City address is very important for citizens and everyone, really, to really get a feel for what the mayor's vision for our city is and will be coming up. It will cover many things that will impact on multiple levels of our city. So you're invited to that, and as I said before, the Youth Violence Prevention Week kickoff. Everyone is invited to that too, Sunday at 1:30 at the Emerald Youth Lonsdale location.
One more thing, committee members should have received the SOP for the mounted patrol unit, so I just sent those out.
Anything else for the community?
Thanks for hosting us here.
If not, we're adjourned.
So when else listening session?
Oh yeah, listening session.
That will be May 16th or 15th,
At the
6 to 8.
Yeah, 6 weekly at the YWCA Phyllis Wheatley Center. And what a listening session is, we want people to come from the community and let us know what they feel about being policed. We have some guided questions on what they can do, what they feel rather about how Parc can be more influential. It's not meant to be really about the police department, contrary to what you might think. It's really meant to be about how can Parc better interact with the police department, with the city, with citizens. So we really want to hear your feedback, and you're all welcome to come. And it will be at the Phyllis Wheatley Center on May 15th, 6 o'clock.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second. All in favor? Thank you very much.